So we'll do some quick introductions. We made some slides just to have a reference point to look at. Oh, good. Here's Ainsley. Um, but really the purpose of tonight is to talk about the high school program in ways that are hopefully relevant and specific to your kid or kids coming over next year. And we've got some students and parents here to speak to their experience and perspective having transitioned to the high school from EMS last year. And that insight is really important and sometimes hard to get. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. I'm going to go through just a couple details as you hear people talk or if they have thoughts. If you want to put questions in the chat, you can, or obviously you can feel free to unmute and just ask your question in real time. I'll introduce myself and then Andrea can introduce herself. And then students and parents, high school parents who are here, will kind of ask you to unmute and introduce yourself as we go around. I'm Ariel Martin Cohen. I'm the academic at the high school campus.
I'm Andrea Meade, and I'm one of the assistant deans of students at the high school here. Maybe Violet and Wade, you guys can introduce yourselves. Tell us whether you're residents or day students and maybe where you're from.
I'm Violet. I'm a boarder and I'm from Groton, Mass.
I'm Wade. I'm also a resident and I'm from Sutton, Mass.
Nice.
And then Ainsley, maybe you can introduce yourself next.
I'm Ainsley. I'm from Swampscott and I'm a day student.
Great.
And then I think Erin's on the call with us.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Erin Pfeiffer. My son, Kellen Upton, is a freshman this year at the high school. He's a fifth-year landmark student, was at EMS for 5th through 8th grade. We live in Amesbury, and I'm excited to be here to help offer any answers or insight that I can.
Thank you. And I think Jared or Susan, or maybe both of you can introduce yourselves.
You get us both. I'm sorry, I can't get the video to come on for some reason. You could see our smiling faces. We have Eli in the 9th grade, and as many of you know, we have Tyler in the 8th grade. So we're here on both sides of this.
Hi, I'm here too.
That's great.
Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so I'm just going to roll through maybe 2 or 3 slides. Again, if you've got questions, you can pop them in the chat, or when I'm done, I'll kind of open it up and we can certainly ask Wade and Violet and Ainsley and our parents to speak to some specific elements of their experience too. So the high school is going to launch a different schedule next year, very similar to the EMS schedule. And you may have already gone to some of Josh's presentations or read through emails, but we know there's a ton of details that have been shared. So just to make sure you're kind of clear on what the high school is going to look like next year, we're going to have an 8-class schedule instead of 7. And we're going to move to a block schedule with 4 classes each day. We're also building in a daily advisory block. So this year, the freshmen have been doing a version of advisory where they meet twice a week. And Wade and Violet and Ainsley, you can share kind of your thoughts about what that was like. I think we learned a lot from that experience. We're taking the best parts and shifting the parts that didn't work as well. One of the main ones is it was tough to have advisory happen during milk break, which was like a key primary social time. So that's why we're shifting advisory to a different block of the day. So kids still have milk break to be with friends, have a snack, catch their breath, and can engage with advisory later on in the day. We're also really excited about what this means for programming in terms of curriculum and access to electives. We did an electives fair at the high school today where all the department heads set up a little table to talk about some of the options. And I'll actually be sending an email to your 8th graders tomorrow so that they can send their elective requests to me. And we'll see what we get them into. And then we're going to build in office hours at the end of the day, which is a voluntary optional period of time. But it's another opportunity for kids to connect with faculty outside of class time. It's also going to be a great opportunity for faculty to connect and communicate and collaborate with you all. But that's one of the other changes for our schedule. And then, and this is, might be familiar, myself, Bill Barrett, Rob Genatelli, we came over to EMS in the fall during conference days to talk about the different programs at the high school. And you may have already started having conversations with your academic advisor. But at the high school, we have 3 different academic programs that run parallel. So we have the expressive language program, the founders program, and the prep program. There's similarities between all of them, but their structure is intended to provide different levels of support depending on your kid's profile and what they need. Um, and I realized this morning when I was putting these slides together that I have to update this for next year's schedule because this doesn't result in 8 classes. So the basic information is still accurate, but obviously we need to update the layout. And then the last thing I'll show before we kind of pivot over to the kids and parents for some questions is our course progression. I don't expect that you can read this tiny font or take in all of this, but what I really hope to convey is that we have a really rich curriculum and course offerings that provide remedial skill development, appropriate skill application, and really advanced study for kids depending on their areas of interest and passion that certainly line up with many mainstream and independent high schools with a landmark focus and all of the landmark teaching principles. Um, so I think myself, the department heads were really proud of the courses that we've been able to put together and the new ones that we're developing to run next year in this 8-class schedule because it really allows kids to have a grounding in skill development, but not miss out on high interest, really important content. And again, those elective and application offerings that are usually the thing they're most excited about in a given day. So this new schedule really allows us to do both of those things, which we're very, very excited about, even as there's lots to figure out. And then, these are just the electives that high school kids walked around and saw today. And this is the list that will go home to your 8th graders tomorrow. I'll make sure it's in the high school parent newsletter, but I can also make sure it's in the EMS parent newsletter if you want to look over options with your children or child and just make sure they kind of have some thoughts about what they want to take. They already came to campus and met all the department heads and usually have a pretty good strategy of what they want to sign up for based on what their friends want to take, which is totally fine. And then I put them into classes. I try and get them into one of their top 3 choices when we're scheduling in August. So why don't we have the students kind of engage? Because I know we don't have them for a ton more time.
Wade and Violet, do you guys want to talk about like how your transition was from EMS to high school?
I feel like the transition, like it wasn't that hard. It was just like kind of finding like the campus and stuff and like finding my way around and like classes and everything like that.
For me, I really enjoyed it. I really liked staying here. It's super fun. Everything's just kind of convenient. Like food's right there. Friends are you're always with your friends. It was definitely like trying to find my way around campus was like what I was struggling with at first, but like you get a hang of it once you like when you're like second week, third weekend. So.
Mm-hmm.
Ainsley, anything stand out for you as far as your transition from EMS to high school?
No, it's like definitely finding your way around the campus because it's like a lot larger. But yeah.
Do parents have questions for Violet, Wade, or Ainsley? Anything specific that you want to ask them?
Let's see. We have a question here if I can pull it up. Great question. The course selection slide, I will make sure you guys have access to all of these slides afterwards. These are like the most current up-to-date ones, and the curriculum guide on the website needs a little bit more attention. So I'll make sure you get these slides tomorrow, as well as a recording of our presentation today.
Ainsley, do you want to talk about like what does your typical day look like? So you go through your classes, but then like what's your commute like or your afternoon? How much time do you spend on campus? Stuff like that.
Like like 30 and then in the morning and then it's like maybe like I get home at like 4, so it's like 40, 50 in the afternoon. And it's really not that bad.
Good.
I have an art class and like I go to the studio outside of school. So like that's from like 7 to 9 and I try to get my homework done and then I stay after school on campus because it's the spring now. I play tennis, so that's Tuesday and Thursdays. And then like occasionally I'll stay after for like games that me and my friends will watch. Sometimes I'll stay over, like if we're having Saturday school, I'll sleep over. But it's like it's definitely interesting being a day student at a boarding school because like you sometimes feel like you're missing things, but I feel like they do a pretty good job of like being able to like stay over, or if your friends are boarders, you can like bring them home for like a weekend.
That's great.
Wade and Violet, how about you guys? So as residents, like what does your afternoon, evening look like?
Well, I'm on the lacrosse team, so after school I have practice, and then after practice I'll like go back to my dorm, do my homework, and like get dinner and like just chill.
Yeah, I'm also on the lacrosse team, so I have practice right after school, and then I'll go to dinner. After that, homework. I have free time. Maybe I'll go shoot, go to the gym. Um, yeah, it's kind of free roam after school almost. You gotta make sure you check in at your right times. I've been finding that out the hard way, but you gotta make sure you get the check-ins on time, and that's it.
That's great.
Violet and Wade, do you want to talk about the schedule at nighttime? So like what the schedule for a resident looks like after dinner?
So after dinner you like check in at 6:15, and then you wait like 15 minutes and they'll let you go out for free time at 6:30, and that's when you can kind of like do whatever you want and like play like sports, go to the gym, like hang out with your friends and stuff. And then like you check in again for 7:30 and you have to do like your homework and like clean your room and stuff like that.
What's homework been like for you guys this year? And did you notice any difference between this year and eighth grade?
I noticed a slight difference. Workload didn't really like increase. It was kind of the same amount of work every night, but like definitely the level of it rose in. Not to like too much. Like
Yeah.
Landmark was pretty like good on that, like not increasing it too much, but just the right amount and
Yeah.
where I needed it. But the workload was pretty light. It's just like getting everything done. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just like kind of like the level of the work. It was still like the same like amount kind of.
But maybe a little bit more challenging sometimes. Ainsley, what about for you?
Uh, yeah, I agree with that. I think that I've had like more long-term assignments, but other than that, it's like more challenging, but really good.
Good.
Ainsley, there's a question in the chat bar about Saturday school. Are you able to share with us like facts or information about Saturday school?
Yeah. Um, it's like we have like mandatories, which are like health, and it's like half a day, so it isn't that bad. Um, and then it's like most of the time you can like pick what you want to do, and they'll have like 4-hour ones, and they're like all fun. Like I went thrifting on one, but then you also have like mandatories like health or other things.
Great.
Cool.
And Aaron, you're right. It runs once a month. So it's 8 Saturday schools total throughout the year. And Andrea and her team do an awesome job of community nights the night before.
So yeah, Ainsley had mentioned sometimes she sleeps over before Saturday school. So a lot of times the day students will stay Friday night. We have an all school community night on that Friday night before Saturday schools. And sometimes day students will stay overnight so that they're here in the morning.
The slide that's up on the screen is the residential level system. So there's a really thoughtfully created and recently kind of updated approach to accountability and privileges. Violet and Wade, do you want to talk about navigating the level system? What is that like for you? What do you have to do to move up in levels?
Well, there's like the highest level that like we can be is level 4, and I'm level 3. And to get like to move up in levels, you just need to be like responsible. Like you need to make your bed, you need to like clean your room, and like just be organized and stuff. And like sometimes the dorm parents, if they don't think you're meeting like those standards, they'll give you level warnings. which basically like it can cause you to level down if you like continue like doing the things that they tell you not to do and like correct you on.
Mhm.
And like if you get like multiple of those, they'll like move you down in levels.
Great.
Yeah, basically what she said. From level 1 to 3, you don't. It's basically kind of just like a consistent, a consistent, basically how you're like consistently showing how you earned it, and by keeping your room clean, getting to your check-ins on time and stuff. But to get to level 4, you actually need to community service hours. 10 if you're not a 3 seasons athlete, I think it is. If only 5 hours if you are do 3 season sports. But other than that, yeah, it's just that each level comes different, like different things you are allowed to do. You can turn in your pass-ins on to like leave school different times. Like you just get more freedom the more you move up in the levels.
Those are great explanations. You guys spoke to kind of the general expectation or experience of homework. How much time would you say you're usually spending on homework on like a normal night?
Um, I would say about like maybe an hour if I were to get like, depends how many classes assigned. Not all classes
Totally.
assigned every single day.
Yep.
Also, some of my like I know some of my classes they do like if you don't finish the work in class, you have for homework.
Yep.
So that's like also reflecting off um, like what you do in class. So if I get probably homework in every single one of my classes, I would say like an hour and a half it takes usually.
Great. Violet, what about you?
Yeah, same, like an hour, like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on like how many of my classes give me homework. And if it's like a longer assignment that like takes long term, I'll do like a little bit of it like each night until it's like due.
Smart. Ainsley, about the same for you? About an hour, sometimes more?
Yeah, typically.
Yeah. That's definitely our hope that it's about 20 minutes per class. Not every class assigns every day, but our expectation is it's around 20 minutes per assignment. Students should be able to do it independently, but with resources provided by the teacher as necessary, like notes from class or access to the textbook or calculator for math problems, whatever it might be. But students should really be able to navigate homework on their own. And if they're not, or if it's super stressful and really sort of contentious, then we definitely want to hear about that and think about ways we can support or whether or not the class is the right level, the right amount of structure. Students, I know we've got you for like 10 more minutes. Is that right, Andrea?
Yeah.
What are some things that feel like a good addition to your life at the high school, like a nice change from EMS? Not to criticize or bash anything at EMS, but what are some things about the high school that felt like kind of a nice change or a nice addition for you?
I guess like kind of getting more like freedom and stuff and not being like watched all the time over by the teachers and like getting to use our phones like in between periods if like we need to.
Yep, those are two good ones.
Yeah, I would say the same. At the EMS, like there was like we were the oldest, and it was like kind of went down. So the rules that applied to us were like applied to like the kids in like the like second grade and all the
Yeah.
grades below. So we were kind of, in my opinion, treated like more like little kids. But
Yeah.
in the high school, you're treated just like definitely more mature kids. You get more freedom, just more responsibilities, and I really enjoy that. So.
That's great. Ainsley, what about you?
Yeah, freedom is a big one. Also, just like a lot more people. It's like double the people, I think, or like
Mhm.
around that, which is like nice.
That's great. Um, oh, here's a good question from the chat. Have you guys been able to keep some time for your friends from home and balance with friends from Landmark? How are you managing kind of two different communities?
When I go home, sometimes I'll like get in touch with my like friends and like hang out with them. But also, like I have friends here like that I'll spend time with over the weekends.
Mhm.
But I think like sometimes it could be hard to manage like friendships in two different places because you're not always around like your friends from home and you're not like always around your friends from like school.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Yeah, it's the same. Like Landmark is kind of like given me like I've gotten a really strong bond to a lot of my friends here, and sometimes I'll hang out with them over the weekends. But I do like try as much as I can to hang out with friends around home. Especially like some of the different seasons, I have like a lot of sports going on. I'm a big sports kid, so I have a lot of sports going on, and it's sometimes hard to manage that. But uh, I found like just like depending on the seasons, I definitely get to hang out with them more often, and yeah, I still keep in touch. So.
Wade, do
great.
you do any sports at home, or have you done most of your sports at Landmark?
I've done most of my sports outside of Landmark. All winter, I snowboard, and that takes up I go up every weekend, and that takes up my whole winter basically. Um, and so I don't see my friends as much as then. And in the summer, and then in all my other seasons, actually, I do lacrosse. So pretty much I'm booked on sports, but I do leave a lot of time with my friends, and I manage that. I'd say pretty well. So.
That's great.
And we do have students who participate in sports at home. So like Landmark doesn't have ice hockey or football. And so those tend to be our biggest sports that students will participate at home on home teams.
I mentioned at the beginning advisory. Ainsley or Violet or Wade, what are some things you remember doing in advisory this year?
In advisory, we kind of like talked about like things we're gonna be like we might experience in our future and like how to prepare ourselves for it.
It also, yeah, it also kind of exposes people that are kids that usually don't see each other throughout the day,
Yeah.
and like basically more like community. And, like I definitely haven't. I wouldn't say I wouldn't talk to some of the kids that are in my advisory unless I saw like met them in my advisory. I wouldn't talk to them outside. Um, but now that I've had an advisor, I've like met new people, and definitely it kind of exposes you to more friends.
That's awesome. Ainsley, anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I agree. I made a couple of friends in my advisory. That was a great um, place, but I think it like showed us like a couple like it was like small like life skills, like how to write like an actually good email
Yeah,
and like stuff like that, which like they touch on a lot.
that's great. I think that you guys hit on our goals for advisory, that it's a social outlet for a group of kids that might not have class together but share a common connection. Either they're in the same grade or they're all new students or whatever it might be. And we want it to be fun and student driven, but we also want it to be an opportunity to provide useful skill development, like sending an email. We do a lot of previewing what's coming up, goal setting, and executive function planning. And it's been great for us, like as faculty, as administrators, to know that when something's going on, we can get to all the freshmen without pulling them from class or scheduling some big meeting. It's more responsive, which has been great. Um, there's a couple other questions in the chat that'll be great for us to answer kind of among parents and high school parents. Your insight will be great. Um, Ainsley,
Ainsley
yeah,
and Violet and Wade. So this Zoom has parents of eighth graders who are about to send their students to the high school. Do you guys have any advice for them as parents or any advice for them to give to their children?
So what I've noticed is as a resident, I don't see my parents as much. I do spend a lot of time with them over the weekends. I call them almost every night, talk to them, check in, and just like say hi. But I would say like I don't know. It's kind of hard to be like looking at like someone like sending them off to a boarding school. But Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to trouble question.
Yeah, I agree. I also don't see like my parents a lot and stuff, and I try to talk to them like as much as I can, like when I get the chance, because I don't go home a lot, so I don't get to see them for like sometimes like weeks like at a time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't really know how to like, yeah.
So
I mean,
do those phone calls help you? So is like maintaining communication with them as much as possible, is that important to you guys?
Yeah, it definitely builds a connection. Funny enough, my mom called me last night. It was my dog's birthday. Pretty funny, but that was it happens every once in a while. Like they call and something crazy happened. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that. It's like, thanks for calling. Keep me updated.
Nice. So maybe like not to forget you and to include you in the things that are going on at home, even though you're not there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good advice.
That is good advice.
Ainsley, any advice you have for these parents?
Not really. I don't really
No.
have like obviously I'm still living at home,
Mhm.
so I talk to my parents like every day. But yeah.
What advice would you guys give to the eighth graders
Mm.
coming over?
To like not stress, like I don't know. I was like freaked out, but now I've like obviously like you settle in. It's like a different environment, but it's like I personally like the high school better. I think I have like more freedom and it's just overall a better like place for me. But it's like you'll settle into it, you'll make friends.
That's great.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's really fun coming here, but I would just try to find friends. I mean, it's a lot way more fun experience if you have a group you're with or spending time with someone, or especially you're able to walk with some friends to class. It just kind of
Mhm.
moves you, makes your day go faster almost.
Yeah, I agree. Like, don't stress out about high school because, like, I feel like I was like really stressed and nervous. But when I got here, I realized like I made like new friends like pretty fast, and like I kept some old ones. And I like agree like having friends is like really nice, and like you'll realize you guys like your schedules kind of like overlap, and that like you guys can like walk with each other, and like basically like you just like surround yourself around people.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Parents, any last questions for Violet, Ainsley, or Wade before we let them go? They have homework to get done.
You too. All right. I think the
No.
questions
All
are
right.
really good ones for parents to ask. Thank you guys for being here, speaking to your experience and the transition over.
Thank you, guys.
Great job.
So for parents and Aaron and Jarrett and Susan, I'll throw some of these to you guys too, just to speak to your experience. Maybe we can just start with homework. What's been your experience of watching your kid navigate? It could be homework or it could be just like the academic experience in general. What's it been like for them navigating that at the high school compared to eighth grade? Aaron, do you want to start and then?
Yeah, sure. So I just want to preface by saying that Kellen actually ended up participating in the summer program between eighth and ninth grade, which I know it's not something that's maybe the right fit for everybody, but for Kellen, it really helped kind of ease that anxiety going up to the high school because he was able to meet teachers, connect with counselors, with advisors, kind of learn how to navigate the campus a little bit more in kind of a more smaller environment. So when he started school, once the school year started, I felt like he was kind of able to kind of hit the ground running a little bit more. And I have to be honest, like the acclimation has been wonderful. He loves the high school. I think like some of the other students said, you keep old friends. He's made new friends. He's kind of found a home for himself in the theater world there, and really enjoys that. Utilizes his tutorial teacher to even help practice lines. And his classes definitely seem like they're very much tailored to where he's currently at, which I think has relieved a lot of the stress that Kellen felt going up to the high school and being really nervous about the workload change between 8th and 9th grade. I've noticed, at least, just from, from my experience with Kellen, is that there's been so much growth and independence in all facets. But particularly even noticing it with homework, where even up through the end of 8th grade, you have to sit with them every night and go through it. And now he's much more independent, self-starting when it comes to his homework. He'll ask when he needs help with things. I don't remember trig, so I'm not the person to help him with that. But there's a lot of things I can help with. But math, I'm like, you might want to ask your dad about that one. So yeah, it's just been overall a great experience. He's really just trying to think what I was going to say. Yes, I mean, Saturday school, like to your point, he typically will stay over the night before with a friend, so that he can be right there on campus the next morning, which I know helps him. We live about 45 minutes away, and I know people are probably varying degrees of distance, and sometimes that gets exhausting for him, especially I'm sure if kids have sports practices, they're experiencing the same thing where I'll pick him up, after rehearsal, and then he's got to come home and decompress, and then has homework and dinner, and probably eats way more Chipotle than any 14-year-old should. But we get.
I think he's got plenty of company.
I'm like, you're gonna turn into a human chicken burrito, kiddo. I don't know what to tell you, but so there are times where he's expressed that he'd actually like to be a resident. So that's something that maybe we might consider down the road. Because I think he kind of feels the same way sometimes, like he's missing out on things that are happening on campus. He really enjoys being there with all of the students. So one thing that I wanted to mention that was like something that I wasn't personally ready to navigate as a parent was that I remember during tech week for one of the shows, Kellen had called me and said, hey mom, like, he's doing the show. There's older kids that are juniors and seniors and have their licenses. And he said, hey mom, some of the kids are going down to Whole Foods to grab a bite to eat. Can I go with them? Now it's with a student driving. And that wasn't really like a conversation that we had yet in the fall about sort of what those sort of boundaries look like and what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not comfortable with. And, so it's definitely been an exercise in, I have to say, like, Kellen has like shown me that he's trustworthy and that the people he surrounds himself with are seem to be really trustworthy and great kids. And it's been an exercise as a parent and like kind of also learning to let go a little bit too and give them those opportunities to have that additional freedom too. But obviously it's it's a parental decision. But those are things that sort of come up that I have to say, like, there's no hard and fast rule that as a freshman you can't go in a car with a senior to go run down the street and get something to eat. That's something that as parents, I think that in regards to those sorts of things that I would recommend having those types of conversations with your kids as they go to the high school, and maybe they have those opportunities or confronted with those situations so they understand what your boundaries are as parents and what your expectations are. But overall, I'd say he's felt so supported. And I feel like he's really taking advantage of everything that Landmark has to offer that is like up his alley. And it's been really exciting to see. So I hope your students have a similar experience.
That's awesome. Jarrett and Susan, do you want to talk about Eli's experience this year? I think you're still muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
You got it.
Do you want to read?
Yeah, so for Eli, it's been nothing but fantastic watching him grow into a really independent kid. He 100% is all in at Landmark. He loves the size of the campus, that it's so much larger than EMS, as he'll say. But yet it's not so big that any kid feels lost or both, socially or physically on campus. One of the big changes for him has been homework, as he's been getting more homework as the year's been going, which has been fantastic for someone who says he wants to go to college. We talk a lot about, independent work and doing your best at all times.
It's increased, but they're he usually has some homework done, but he'll come home and have at least another half hour or so to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
After that.
a big change from EMS is that they do have numerical grades at the high school, which for some kids can be very eye-opening when whether they get great grades, average grades, or he has friends who don't get some great grades on quizzes or something, and he's like, oh, somebody got a 70 or something, and they're talking about the numbers themselves, which is definitely a change where EMS it's not talked about and not followed that way. Other things he really loves are the activities that he can sign up for, both on campus and going off campus. He is a day student, but he's gone on some of the different field trips and things that the school has offered, whether it was during the week, once during the week, and then a few of the weekends. And he's definitely taken advantage of sleeping over and being with some of his boarder friends. All the day students definitely have boarder friends and vice versa. So there seems to be a lot of, hey, I'm going to hang out with so-and-so, and we're going to have dinner tonight. It's Friday night, and do the community night, and then do the Saturday school. And for us day parents, you're like, wait, I'm not going to see him for.
I'll see you Sunday morning.
Yeah. So, but it's been nothing but fantastic for him.
That's awesome. But you guys shared some really great specific insight there too, of thinking about permissions and conversations to have ahead of time, the recognition that grades are different, and that everyone's performance, the kids are the fastest to talk about grades. Even like before the teacher can say, please don't talk about grades, they're already talking. So it's definitely something that they engage with, and is definitely an adjustment from EMS's version of reports and programming to the high school.
And I also was just going to mention too that I've noticed that with Kellen, fortunately, like I think it's been really, I think that having those grades, to Jaren's point, is that it's been affirming for him in some respects. They're like, oh wait, like this is just another sort of acknowledgement of the work that's going in, and a way to kind of quantify it, if that makes sense. But if there's been a time where maybe he needed to, if there's a subject that was more challenging and maybe he didn't do as well as he would have liked to on a quiz, I will say that the teachers have always been really open to having conversations about giving another opportunity to either correct a quiz or to retake it, and giving him and the students another opportunity to show what they know. So
I think a comment that Jared and Susan made as far as the grades go. Remember, once your child gets into high school, we're tracking them towards graduation. And so there are graduation requirements that they need to hit in order to earn that diploma. And a big piece that comes up is attendance. So a big difference between middle school and high school is how tightly attendance is tracked. And so each trimester, each year, they have to stay within boundaries of attendance and absences. So you want to like have that in mind. And then another big thing in our calendar, Ariel alluded to the Saturday school piece. So once a month, we do have a Saturday school that runs from 8 to noon. And then another big change is our vacations. So you guys at EMS, you're on a February-April break vacation schedule. And here at Landmark High School, we have 2 weeks in March instead of one in February and one in April. So, checking the website, making sure that you're looking at the calendar, and again, like being strategic about days off, will be important once your child gets into high school.
And I just want to mention too that I know you were talking about, obviously attendance being really important, but also that, tardies, X amount of tardies will affect your student's grade as well. And I know, believe me, I think we all can relate to how difficult the mornings can be at times. We're trying to get our kids to Landmark and your other kids wherever they are, and to work and the whole thing. I want to say for Kellen that as much as he loved EMS, at that particular time, he was having a lot of resistance with school. And not because he didn't love his teachers or his friends or anything, he was just really, really struggling. And that has not been a problem at at all at the high school. In fact, I think that he's so happy there and so engaged and involved. A lot of times he's like, I've got rehearsal after school today. I can't miss school, even if he's really tired, he like pushes himself. So, I think that if you happen to have a student that that might be something that's more difficult for them, hopefully that they'll hopefully maybe they'll have a similar experience and find that the high school, that all the other aspects of it kind of make it a little bit easier for them to go to school. So
That's great. We definitely have lots of kids where school has been a real challenge for
yeah,
all of the reasons.
exactly. Yeah.
So our attendance policies are very structured, like Andrea said, with you have 4 unexcused days per trimester in recognition that sometimes just kids need a break. They don't need to go to the doctor's office necessarily, but they need a day to rest. Um, but the trimester is like 60 days long. So we want them at school, but there is some awareness that they're also teenagers, things happen. They might get legitimately sick, whatever it might be. And this is at the very end of the chat, but our academic calendar is set for next year in the slides that I send out. There's a link to it. It's on the website, but it'll be easier to find in these slides. So it's all established if you want to look at start dates and vacations.
Mhm.
One nice thing, and this won't be the issue for many of you if you have your last kid at the elementary middle right now, but we've lined up our calendars in terms of start dates, end dates, Thanksgiving break, and winter break. We used to be on 2 completely different calendars, and now we're in alignment except for February, April versus March, which is a big deal. I know it's a big deal to have kids out of school for 2 weeks if that doesn't line up with other family members or you as parents. All
Ariel,
right.
did you have a chance to get to the other questions that were in
Nope,
the?
I was just gonna go back up to the top and work through, and if you guys have other ones, feel free to type them in or we can just kind of bounce around. So a question about when you learn about which track or which program your kids are in. So those conversations start in December, January. Myself and the department heads start connecting with elementary, middle school, well, just middle school department heads and Megan Siebens as academic dean to talk about programming. The program placement primarily reflects their language arts class and the level of structure and support we want them to have in language arts, and whether or not we want them to have an additional layer of support in oral expression or social communication. So it's not all of their classes. Math, science, history, the electives, those are not scheduled within academic programs. It's really focused on their writing class and what additional skill development or skill support we want them to have. The high school's version of oral expression is slightly different than the 8th grade oral expression literature class. So some of your kids will end up in a high school oral expression class. Some of your kids will end up in a high school literature class. And some of your kids will end up in a high school, like a study skills class or debate class, depending on their skills and profile. So the programs really just provide the right level of structure and support, again, in written or oral expressive language. But those decisions will be finalized over the next few weeks. Your EMS advisor can definitely give you insight. You can also reach out to me. And when you come to our campus in August or the start of the year, you'll get the actual schedule that will show you the classes that they're in. Good question about enrollment. The 8th grade class at EMS is smaller. It's not the smallest we've seen by any stretch, but it's smaller than maybe last year's class. We typically have around 60 kids in a class, sometimes 70 or 80, but around 60 is what we're kind of hoping for. Your kids make up the bulk of it. But we get a lot of kids from Carroll School. We get lots of kids from other countries. We get kids from other school, like other states. So they will be on campus with other freshmen that they don't know, which will be nice for them to have just different social outlets.
Yeah, so about 30 out of the 60 will come from EMS, but there will be others. Yep.
And then there'll be another probably 60 new to high school kids in the other grades. So we take another chunk of kids. We'll take kids freshman, sophomore, junior year. We don't usually take kids just for senior year. So we usually have about 100 new kids every year across all of those 3 grades. So obviously all the freshmen are new, but there's other new students too. And we accept throughout the year. So kids are really wonderful at welcoming new students in in November or January, depending, because they've all had that experience too. Great question about students participating in town sports. So what we've done in our previous schedule, when we had 8 classes and they all met every day, we would put your elective at the end of the day to support afternoon practices. And then in some instances with ice hockey in particular, where sometimes there's morning practices, we would put the elective in the morning so that during their season, they weren't missing academic classes, they were just missing their elective. In this new schedule, we're figuring out how to do that in a way that's supportive. We will still use the elective for one of the 2 days, but we need to be thoughtful about each kid, which class. I don't want them missing chemistry if I can avoid it, for example. But we'll work with their schedule to support whatever their dismissal is. Dismissal for district sports is excused. Participation is totally supported by Landmark, as long as it's a sport that we don't offer. So we offer a pretty good variety of traditional sports, but like Andrea said, we don't have football, we don't have ice hockey, we don't have softball, color guard, we don't have any equestrian stuff. There's lots of cool activities that kids do that we don't offer, and we'd love to support that. And then Andrea, do you want to speak to, just because I can never remember the numbers, the balance of day versus boarding currently?
Yeah, and it shifts and it's shifted over time. So we're closer to being equal day students, residents. So they're about the same. I think more recently, the day student numbers have taken over the residential numbers in more recent years. So we're a little bit heavier weighted day at this point. But they're pretty equivalent on each side. Yeah.
And kids can change. So you can start as a day student, Aaron, like you were talking about with Kellen, and then he might decide, or you might decide come junior year or maybe senior year, that that's something you as a family want to try or want to support. And we've had kids go the opposite way, start out as residents and decide once they get their license, junior or senior year, that they want to become day students. So you can experience both programs depending on what's feasible and viable for your family.
The students talked about, and on that, this in the slides that we'll share with you, on the level system chart at the top, it tells you like what skills are targeted. So as far as residential program, so if you were to board a child with us, we do have a residential mission. We work on organization, time management, self-advocacy skills. And so at each level, there's like a targeted skill that we're working at, whether it's time management or advocacy or leadership. So we do target skills and build skills. So sometimes we'll have a senior who's been a day student for a number of years, and then will board with us senior year just to practice. Like their plan is to go to college and to live away from home. And so some of them do a practice run senior year here. At least it's in a place, that's a little bit more insulated, and they have scaffolding and supports available to them as they try to, make that transition and practice those skills.
Yeah. I just tried to screen share again and it's not playing along.
Not cooperating.
That's okay.
Aaron brought up a good point. This is the summer. As a residential dean, I would be remiss if I didn't encourage you to have conversations with your children about the things that they're going to be exposed to in high school. So are we, a private school? Yes. And do we have certain standards around substances and things like that? Yes. But I would tell you, their exposure to drugs and alcohol and sex are going to be just like any other high school and any other place, where they'd be as teenagers. So I would really encourage you to have those conversations with them over summer if you haven't already done so, and make sure that they're clear as far as what are your family values and what are the expectations that you have of them. And if they're in a situation where they're uncomfortable and they don't want to be, like, how do they communicate with you to get out of it? Have some code words or some kind of plan to use if they find themselves in situations that they need to get out of. So I think it's important to start those conversations if you haven't already done so.
Kind of related to that is the question about advisory. So you will still, your child will have someone as their advisory leader that they're going to meet with every day during that kind of middle of the day block. It's an evolution of the academic advisor role. So it isn't the traditional full-time advisor role that you've had if you've been in EMS for a number of years. We're structuring the role a little bit differently, but there will be a person that's going to see your child every day, regardless blue or gold, during that window of time in the middle of the day. And they will be a great contact point for you. We're also trying to encourage and foster communication between you and the classroom teachers directly, which is something that we usually haven't supported. And I've certainly found in my years of experience that parents have increasingly just wanted to talk directly to the science teacher to understand why their kid performed poorly on the quiz, or just want to talk to the language arts teacher to better understand whatever the assignment is. So we want to foster that communication between parents, guardians, and teachers directly, with the advisory leader as kind of a lead voice or like a team captain for you and for your student. So you will have an advisory leader that you'll meet and sort of introduce yourself to when you come to campus in August. And your current advisor will go through all of the scheduling process, summer reading, all of that, and hand all that information to the high school campus. So the transition's pretty smooth from that perspective of we kind of keep the story of your kid to this point, bring it over to the high school campus, and then you get to start working with the new advisory leader. But there's definitely some big changes. So that'll take some getting used to for everybody. And then you guys will be coming into it fresh.
One of the questions in the chat is for border students, will those exit strategy communications happen with resident supervisors? Will someone be able to scoop them up if they're in a troubling situation? So if you board your child here, once you drop them off, they're not allowed to leave unless we have your written permission or unless you come and take them. So if they're looking to sleep over a day student's house, there's paperwork that they have to fill out. If it's just, they're just going for a few hours, we call it a day pass. If they're going somewhere overnight, we call that a weekend pass or an overnight pass. And we will not let them leave until we hear from you and you email us saying that you give permission for them to go. Related to something Aaron said too, like we will not let them get in someone else's car unless we have permission from both sets of parents. So the one driving and, the one coming in as a passenger. We would encourage you again, we want to make sure that parents continue to have agency and involvement in their residents' lives. So that if your child's asking to go sleep over at someone's house for a weekend, we would encourage you to have parent to parent communication. So that you're communicating with that other parent. Is their definition of supervision the same as yours? Do you feel comfortable sending your child to someone else's house? Certainly, yes, your residential supervisors or house parents will be available to you so you can reach out to them and ask them for advice. They are resources for you as well. And if a student needs an airlift, yeah, depending on where they are, and we would get them an airlift as well. Yeah.
That's great. Great question about swimming schedule, which can be intense and last for a very long time. So I think whatever you find for athletic schedules, whatever your child's going to participate in, it's really helpful for us to have it. You can certainly share it with your EMS advisor. And then when you come over to the high school campus, we'll take anything you have in August. In the slides that we'll share with you tomorrow, I just added our athletic director's name, Brooke Sumner, who's a great contact if you just have questions about athletics at Landmark or supporting athletics in town sports or other leagues. And then a great question about tracking grades. And I actually got an email about this from Deb Tella this morning. So we were just talking about it from a 8th grade perspective. So we don't have like one grade portal for you to access kids that are grades that are live. So like my daughter's at public school and we have Power School. So instantaneously, like I can see all of her grades and attendance, and there's a lot of value to that. I also find myself getting very stressed out about it because I'm very grade driven. So we use Google Classroom for 9th, 10th, and most 11th graders. And then starting in 11th grade, but in all seniors are on Canvas, which is a very common learning management system that if your kids go to a kind of traditional 4-year school, they will very likely engage in Canvas or something very similar. So it's a good skill development. We're using a new version of Google Classroom next year that's got more features. So my hope is it's going to better support teachers in doing grading in Google Classroom, which means you would be able to, with your student, look at their grades, see assignments, see owed or missed assignments. But we don't have a separate like parent version of it. You can be added as a guardian if you've got concerns or there's kind of an executive function pattern or it's just been like an ongoing concern with you and your child. We can add you as a guardian, but our hope is that there's conversation between you and your child and they're kind of sharing information. I know they don't share a ton and it's not always very easy. So the other thing we've built in is we do 3 reports a year. So each trimester you'll get a full grades, comments, CPLs if they're on an IEP. But we also do a mid-trimester check-in. So halfway through the trimester, your kids will sit down with every one of their teachers and get feedback on how they're doing behaviorally, effort, homework, organization, participation, and they'll get their current grade as it stands at that midpoint of the trimester. So they'll know where they're at, and kids share those with their families, share those with their advisors. And if something happens, the grade starts tanking, they miss a bunch of assignments or they're not participating, we have something called a notice of performance, which teachers send home. It indicates what their grade is, what the areas of concerns are, and how they can improve their performance before the end of the trimester. And that goes home to parents. So there's lots of ways that we try and keep in communication without it being like my phone dings whenever my kid gets something graded in Power School. I think that's probably too much information for me to have. But we want to make sure you're aware, and we certainly don't want kids to start slipping without you being aware that something's going on or that they're missing opportunities to maintain strong grades.
From a perspective of research, so like research shows that it's actually not great for us as parents to have instantaneous information about our children's grades. It's not healthy for us, it's not healthy for them. And in a lot of ways, remember, you're in this for the long game. You've got 4 years to prepare these kids for life after secondary school. And you really want them in high school to be practicing those skills of self-advocacy, and executive function and managing their time and their assignments. And that it really, unless your child, has really significant concerns around dishonesty, it's really best for us as parents to encourage them to be having those conversations with their teachers directly and teaching them how to use their resources and adult resources in their lives. And again, if your child's totally tanking academically, there's going to be a lot of communication with you. And yes, in those instances, there will be more oversight.
Yeah.
But you really want to, let them fumble and try to figure things out. Yeah, it's healthy, and this is the time in their lives for them to do it. And believe me, there's a lot of scaffolding and support at Landmark, so they're not going to fall too far before someone catches them anyway.
No, that's a great point. And then, yes, we do conferences very similar to EMS. We do an October set of conference days and an April set of days. We do virtual or in person, both days, each round. So it's a great opportunity for you to meet with teachers. It's different from EMS where there's no classes happening. So kids have a 5-day vacation in October and April. Residents are welcome to stay on campus. Andrea and her team organize field trips so they don't have to leave Wednesday night. Many of them do. We do have games and performing arts showcases and visual arts galleries. It's a really cool moment twice a year and a really nice opportunity for you to physically be in the classrooms and spaces where your kids are spending their days. So that's a similar rhythm and routine from the EMS. You guys have had really good questions. I'm trying to go through and see if there's ones we missed or things we haven't talked about. Aaron or Jarrett and Susan, are there things, you've already given a ton of great advice, but are there things that you wish you'd done or thought about in May of your child's 8th grade year that these folks could be doing or thinking about, or things that you were worried about that you didn't need to be worried about?
You definitely don't need to worry that you think your kid is going to become lost and lose the landmark, the landmark feeling of EMS, especially coming from EMS. It's wonderful that it's larger, but the supports, as you all said, the supports are there. The friendships that they all have. Eli has friends that he didn't know from EMS, and it's been fantastic, and it's opened him up to new experiences with new people. So don't let your stress of, oh my gosh, my kid's going to this much larger campus. Don't present that to them, because it's very quickly you're gonna realize how great it is for them that they do have growth into a larger campus.
Yeah, the freedom and the confidence has been excellent.
Yeah,
that's great.
And one other great thing is pick up and drop off are much easier. Eli, so school starts I think at 7:50.
Yes.
We're not at school by 7:20. I am in trouble because he wants to go have breakfast with his buddies who are boarders, or who got there earlier on a bus. And most days for him, he stays after. He likes to sign up for the activities or the gym or working out or going for a run with his buddies and then going and watching a game. And so he'll just text me and say, pick me up the hill or down the hill. And I'll tell him, okay, I'll be there at 4:30, or I'll be there at 4:45, or whatever the time is. It's not a set thing where you have to go sit in line and, go through the drudges of EMS drop off or pickup.
I was an EMS parent for 3 years, so I'm laughing, Jarrett, as you say that. Yeah, so just to piggyback on that, here at the high school, so the high school doesn't close down. We have 100+ residents that we need to feed, 24/7. So campus is open at 7 for breakfast. Your day students are welcome to come for breakfast before school. And we are here until 10 p.m. Usually we say campus closes at 6:15. And that's when the residents, like Violet had shared earlier, have to check into their dorms. But there are times when we have day students who stay later than that. But yeah, so we encourage you, and there's no one pickup spot or drop off spot. So depending on where your child has first period or 8th period, or whether or not they've been involved in sports and need a later pickup, or stayed for dinner, you can pick them up anywhere on campus.
Well, Jarrett, I'm going to have Eli talk to Kellen because we're coming in hot a lot of days at 7:48. So you guys tell Eli to have a little chat with him. But no, I just wanted to echo what Susan and Jarrett said too, that, the independence and the confidence that they gain, and the new friends that they make. And there's so many resources. It's really been wonderful. Like I've seen Kellen say, do you need help with this? Or can I help you with that? Or do you need me to talk to so-and-so? And no, mom, I've got it, and that's really, it's, we all have our stories, right, on how we got here. So it's exciting to see your kids advocating for themselves and knowing what they need too, and being able to express that to the adults around them that they trust. So, I mean, Kellen even utilizes, there's, the counselors around campus. If he has a social situation or something going on that he's trying to navigate in the class and he's not sure how to manage them, like he seeks that out on his own. And So I have to just, yeah, the level of like the maturity and the confidence and the independence that will happen as your child kind of navigates their freshman year is going to be really exciting to watch for all of you, I'm sure. So
That's great. I'll just piggyback on the counseling piece. We have two different, we got to think about better names, but we sort of have two different teams of counselors. So we have like counseling, social emotional counselors. We have 5 full-time folks at the high school campus who work really closely with the EMS team during transition. So if your kid is using counselors at EMS, we can sort of plan for and transition for who they might work with at the high school in very similar ways. They can see them during the school day at a pace or frequency that's appropriate for your child. And they're incredible clinicians and just really wonderful parts of the community. And then we also have guidance counselors who work on transition, post high school, and college planning. That process officially starts in junior year, but they're eager to start getting into working with kids during sophomore year just because the pressure on kids and families starts really soon to start thinking about what comes after high school. We start with transition curriculum in freshman year. So starting to think about your own learning style, understanding your profile, understanding your interests and values, thinking about careers and like the life that you might want to lead. But then the work of actually deciding, do you want to go to a traditional 4-year college? Do you want to go to a 2-year program and get an associate's? Do you want to work? Do you want to travel? Do you want to go to the military? All of those choices, we start talking about them in earnest in junior year. And the team of guidance counselors are awesome. They're incredibly well experienced with our profile of students and schools that work really well with LD kids, as well as schools that your kid may have to work harder to find support, but we've sent kids there and they've done a nice job and found success. So they're a really great team, and you'll get to start to know them sophomore, junior year. But certainly, if you've got particular questions, they're open to talking to parents at any point. But those are just 2 other great parts of the team that you'll get to work with that add a lot to your kid's experience. I can hear my children are having a hard time holding it together. So I realize we're coming to the end of this. Are there other questions or things that we haven't addressed? I know this is kind of like fire hose style of a lot of information. This is recorded, and again, we'll share those slides. And your EMS folks, whether it's your advisor, Megan, Claire, Tara, Kirk, anybody that you see or speak to on a regular basis, knows the high school well and will be a great like resource if you should talk to this person or this is the person that would know that information, in addition to just reaching out to me or Andrea with anything.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to be with us tonight. Oh, maybe a couple more questions.
A good one. Outline meetings we can expect between today and move-in day. Hopefully not too many. This is, Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the last formal meeting for 8th grade parents before the end of the school year.
Yes. Yeah, the rest of the information will come through email and high school newsletters. So they'll do weekly newsletters, with the schedule and move-in information and orientation information. So most of that will come through email and newsletter info. And then there's tons of information on the website. I would encourage you to use that website as a resource, because a lot of information also will get posted there for you.
Yep. You'll get a letter about summer reading sometime soon from Ms. Sylvester. We do ask them to read one book. They can listen to or read as many more as they want, but they do need to choose one book. And then there's a wide variety of project options that they can do, from the traditional book report to a diorama to a playlist, a vision board. And they bring those with them when they come back in September. And kids have done really awesome things. So you'll hear about that. They'll hear about that. And then we'll see you on campus in August.
Yeah. Congratulations on your upcoming graduations.
Yeah.
Enjoy the summer, and
Congratulations.
we'll see you in the fall.
Aaron and Jarrett and Susie, thank you so much for being here. Your insight was awesome.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care, everyone.
you.
Have a great night.
Good night.
The kids are gonna lose it. All right.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a good night.
I'll see you. I'll make sure Susan has these slides
Great.
and figure out who to send it to. All right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Bye.